Hey, it's Webs here, and the mini set for Alterac Valley has been announced. Onyxia's Lair, which actually kind of shocked me a little bit. I had assumed it probably was going to be Scarlet Monastery, though I guess it does make sense since we got the random Lady Prestor in United in Stormwind. And Onyxia's Lair wasn't the first raid in WoW, but it was a pretty early on raid in WoW, so it does make sense for a mini set. And especially because there's only one boss in it, there isn't that many characters that you could actually make into cards. There's actually another announcement with this mini set that there's actually a possibility of entire golden mini set for $70, which is absurd for a price, but it's there for the people who actually want it. I'm not one of those people. The first card that's been revealed is Spawn of Deathwing. Really funny to actually see this. It is a 5-cost minion for Warlock, which has the battle cry destroy a random enemy minion, discard a random card. It's a 6 attack and 6 HP dragon. And honestly, this card kind of frustrates me a little bit. I get why they're doing a random card instead of highest or lowest, but I thought we had learned the lesson from the previous year, where if you're going to have a discard card, you always want to include highest or lowest. It fits thematically with Deathwing, but at the same time, it is kind of frustrating that that's what it's going to be, because there's no way to actually control what card you're actually discarding unless they print some other card that is like, you always discard this card, which they could, I guess. I don't see them doing it, but it's interesting to see discard Warlock maybe getting supported again. A lot of these cards are kind of interesting to think about from decks that are getting randomly supported that haven't been supported for the entire year. And a lot of their cards are like rotating out soon. So these cards will be a lot worse. I would say Spawn of Deathwing is probably a really weak card overall. Sure, it destroys a random enemy minion, but there's so many other cards in Warlock I'd rather include that doesn't make me discard a random card that I have no control over. So until we see any more of the Warlock cards, I would say it's probably a 1 or 2 star card. Cool to see, it's just not playable. It wouldn't be a Onyxia Lair mini set without Deep Breath, which is a iconic Onyxia ability from World of Warcraft. And in the game, it's going to be a 5-cost Fire Mage spell, which deals 1 damage to a minion and its neighbors, and it improves with the number of other spells in your hand. This is a really cool card just because of the theme. It does have some competition in the 5 spot in the form of Apex's Blast and Arcane Overflow, but at the same time, I can see this actually seeing some play in a pure fire deck if you really want some AoE board clear. And it also can target a bunch of big minions, which makes it better than the other 2 spells. So overall, I would say this is probably an average card, and probably will see some play in some type of deck throughout its history in Standard. It isn't too strong and it isn't too weak, which is why it's kind of just an average card. And now for one of the cards I was most excited for, Lightmaw Netherdrake. This is a card that actually supports a deck that I wanted to try out before some cards rotated out, aka Dragon Maw Sentinel. This was a card that I knew was rotating out soon, but I came to the conclusion that there weren't enough dragons in Standard to actually make this card any bit viable after testing it for like a week. And I'm really glad that we're seeing a bunch of dragons in this mini set, so I can actually try to make that into a deck again. I don't know how useful this is going to be, though. At the same time, having an AoE board clear if you're holding a Holy and Shadow spell isn't the hardest thing to do. Sure, you're turning off the possibility of using Archbishop Benedictus in the same deck as a card like this, but at the same time, I think it is actually worth it just because of the fact that it is an early game dragon that is easy to actually place in the deck without worrying too much. So I think this card will probably be a decent enough card. It does show. The thing that is most interesting about this card to me is between this and Spirit Guide, we're actually seeing the introduction of Discipline as a Hearthstone concept, even though it's been a key concept to the Warcraft priest for quite a while. Discipline is the 3rd spec for priests within World of Warcraft and is the one that's been the least represented throughout Hearthstone's history. It's cool to actually see it for once in the game. It's the balance between both Shadow and Holy. If the deck gets continued support, it could be a really interesting archetype to introduce to Hearthstone as a whole. The 4th card revealed today is another dragon. It is a dragon for warrior, which is the Onyxia Drake. It is a 4-cost dragon with 4 attack and 5 HP. It has taunt and the battle cry, deal damage equal to your armor to a enemy minion. I get why they're weary of trying to give warriors some type of face damage, because that could be quite insane. Though this card I think will see some play in some type of control deck, just because of the fact that it gives you a decent enough body and is basically the same thing as the Circus Amalgam, except you get a battle cry instead of having a tribe of everything, which is actually something that isn't necessary. And given the fact that Circus Amalgam is probably rotating out pretty soon, this could fit into some type of control deck instead of that, if you were going down a menagerie route instead with control. It also does indirectly support all the frost spells that we saw in the Alterac Valley set, which is something that I've been wanting to see. It isn't exactly the payoff that I wanted to see with frost support. Maybe we'll get something else instead. It is a common, so who knows, the other 2 cards for warrior might be a little bit more interesting. And overall, I would say this is a decent enough card, probably a 4-star card overall. The 5th card revealed today is Onyxian Mortar, which is a 5-cost dragon with 3 attack and 6 HP, and has the battle cry: if you're holding a dragon, summon 2/1 whelps with rush. This is a stereotypical dragon support that I had assumed we'd probably see something like this. Given the fact that Onyxia's title is the Brood Mother, there's probably going to be a lot of Whelp summoning within this mini set, and I'm not really shocked to see a card like this. It's a cool card to actually see, as it does further support a dragon base deck as a priest or any other class that might have some dragon synergy left over from Outlands. And honestly, the battle cry isn't even that hard to trigger, especially because we're going to get a bunch of other dragons. Though this does have some anti-synergy with the Lightmaw Netherdrake, which is kind of bad, but it is what it is. I do think because it is Onyxia's Lair as the mini set, we probably will see more whelps, and probably something that interacts with the amount of dragons that have died during the game. So overall, I think this is probably a decent enough card. Oh, Bonker is the next card that got revealed, which is going to be a really funny card. It's a 3-cost neutral minion with 1 attack, 5 HP, and Frenzy, and Honorable Kill, draw a card. So at a bare minimum, you're going to draw 1 card probably with this card, just because of its stats line. If you have any way to actually buff it up, then Honorable Kill will be a lot easier to actually trigger on it. I could see this seeing some play in a Libram Paladin, just because of the fact you can easily keep getting the Honorable Kill by scaling up its attack as much as possible. Though at the same time, if there's enough whelps floating around in this set that are actually played, then its Honorable Kill won't be that hard to actually trigger just normally without buffing it up. It's a nice draw power card that a lot of classes might need. A lot of classes could actually use, but I think sadly Paladin is probably going to be its helm. Libram Paladin didn't need any type of buffs, and I think this is probably one of those cards that will fit in that deck pretty easily. Maybe it won't though, just depends if you would want to use this over Alliance Bannerman, because Alliance Bannerman gives your entire hand a buff, but this also has the potential of drawing you at least 2 cards at a bare minimum. So overall, a decent enough card, probably a 3 or a 4 star, somewhere in between that. And I could see this actually seeing a lot of play. The final card that got revealed is Don't Stand in the Fire, which is a 5-cost shaman spell that deals 10 damage randomly split among all enemy minions with the overload of 1. It's cool that we're seeing more fire spells in classes that don't technically always have them. Shaman does have some, but it doesn't have that many. It also makes the Frozen Mammoth a little bit better in theory. I don't think you'd be running this in a deck with that card, but it is worth mentioning, I guess. 10 damage split across all enemy minions is kind of awkward to use, especially for 5 mana, but I guess at the same time, Priest has a very similar card in Devouring Plague, where you do 4 damage split amongst all enemy minions, but with lifesteal for 3 mana, and that doesn't really see that much play, so I don't know how useful this will actually be, especially because Shaman already has cheaper AoE board clears that's going to be probably used in something like Questline Shaman or even Burn Shaman, such as the one that does damage twice if you have Overload. Though then again, this could also be used to trigger Multicaster, but then you also have Perpetual Flame as a better way to trigger Multicaster, so I don't know how useful this is going to be. I'd say probably a 2-star card, even though it is 10 damage split. among all enemy minions. I think it is a little bit too slow to actually be useful in anything relevant. The theme of this set actually kind of shocked me a little bit just because of the fact that Onyxia's Lair is nowhere near Alterac Valley, so I didn't expect it, but I guess it makes sense as a raid, as the final thing to show the progress of the main mercenary characters throughout the entire year. And I'm looking forward to seeing the other cards supported. I really kind of hope to see another totem for Shaman, just because of the fact that if Dragon Priest is getting some support, I'm assuming some of the other older decks that haven't really got much support, but they have some really cool cards, will probably get support. Which means I would assume Totem Shaman would be up there. If you have any ideas of cards that you want to see or any themes supported, leave it down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.